In 1987, on Wednesday nights, from 7 till 9 every week, for 2.5 decades, I would attend my HIV support group with so many of my friends who would shortly, in the next 10 years, most of them die of AIDS. But if we were lucky enough to get to the meeting an hour earlier, we could attend a group called Healing Singing, where we would bring a song, perform it, and the facilitator would say, do it again, and this time be more vulnerable. How can you show us more of who you are with the way you deliver the song? What she was trying to teach us was that healing happens when we stand in the vulnerable, when we allow ourselves to become porous, when we become attractive to others and to God. So one man stood up and he presented his song, Drew. And he brought his song that he wanted to sing that night, and it was a song by Bruce Springsteen from the 1975 album, Born to Run, 7th track. It's called Meeting at the River, or Meeting Across the River. It's also the B-side of the single, Born to Run. And it goes like this. Hey, Eddie, can you lend me a few bucks? And tonight, can you get us a ride? I've got to make it through the tunnel. I've got a meeting with a man on the other side. So it's a story about a kind of an ex-con who's down on his luck and he's trying to make one last final deal. But Drew stood there in front of all of us, as vulnerable as he could be, with a patch over his right eye because he had CMV retinitis, an AIDS-related opportunistic infection which causes blindness, and in his left arm, the Hickman port, the catheter, where he infused himself with hours of medication every day, and on that Hickman port catheter, an ace bandage to keep it in place. He walked with a cane, and his face was covered in Kaposi sarcoma, KS lesions, the purple bluish spots, which we all saw back in those days. Everywhere on his face, I like to say the only part of his face that wasn't covered with KS was his smile. So for Drew, the lyrics had a whole different meaning. Hey, Eddie, can you lend me a few bucks? And tonight, can you get us a ride? I gotta make it through the tunnel. I got a meeting with a man on the other side. There's a beautiful prayer in Judaism. It's one of the Psalms. It's in one of the Psalms. It's also a part of the Havdalah service at the end of Shabbos, which goes like this. I raise my cup of rescue and I call on God's name. Drew was praying. He raised his cup of rescue and he was saying with his song, his plaintive cry, fill my cup with your blessings because I need a miracle. We all need a miracle. Each of us, we can all relate to Drew's prayer. So tonight, I want to talk about praying and the ways that we pray and the different ways and the different types of prayers. And I want to start with a really important one that I think we need to know. Let's start with this one. Because I think that God does answer, if not all, but many of our prayers. Why not pray with this one? Dear God, help me to remember my prayers. Because sometimes I'll speak for myself, but I think you might relate to me if you're like me. I'm so busy asking for something else that I've forgotten that God is already working on the thing I prayed for last week. Help me remember what I've been praying for so that when it arrives, when I arrive to that place where I want to be filled with God's blessings, I remember. I saw a book, or I heard a book on NPR called "My Life Would Be Perfect If I Lived in That House." So I ordered the book thinking that's a book on prayer, right? I want to live like that. And it turns out it's a book on buying houses, real estate. But I love the title. It's the if only prayer. If only I lived in that house, then my life would be perfect. If only I had all of those things, then I could start living my life. The if only prayer. And then there's the prayer at the Kotel. The Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, the wall of supplication, the wall that we go across to Israel to pray in front of and with our pieces of paper in our pockets with our prayers written there. We stand before this ancient wall like a hotline to heaven, believing that God will hear us and answer our prayers. And I remember visiting the Kotel many, many years ago, descending a staircase, looking out over the plaza on the left-hand side, the sea of black hats and men davening, and on the other side, the right-hand side, the sea of women davening. And on a step above all of those prayers, a student of mine, Jason, said, "At this step right here, I like to stop and descend in silence." And I asked Jason, why in silence? And he said, because all those people down there, all those people on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, they're praying. And I like to think that here on this step, as we descend to the plaza, to the Kotel, to offer our prayers on this spot, this is where those prayers that are rising meet us. What would the world be like? What would our lives be like if when we met people, we recognized that in their presence, we are also meeting their prayers? How much more kind would we be, kinder could we be, if we considered the fact that they've been praying and we are meeting them in the midst of their prayers, rising? So we descended in silence, and I got to the Kotel, and I put my shekels in a cup. But the old man at the gate handed out the tefillin, and I went to the wall, and the sun was on my back, and I laid the tefillin and wrapped in my arms, and in leather I tethered my arm 7 times, and I put the headpiece on. And I remember the old man at the gate said, "Just don't put the headpiece against the wall, because others have to use these tefillin." And I looked to the left of me, and I saw an Israeli soldier, and he was praying with his prayer book open, but his eyes were closed, and he was shuckling, he was davening, he was shuckling in Yiddish, he was shaking. And to the right of me, I saw a Hasidic Jew with his black shtreimel, his hat, and his black coat, and his payas, and he, too, had his prayer book open, but his eyes were closed, and these 2 men on the left and the right of me were praying in syncopation to the prayers in their heart, not on the page. And I looked at my feet, and I saw the pieces of paper, the puddle of pleas, the flood of prayers that had fallen out of the cracks of the stone, the old wall, because somebody else had put their prayer in its place. And at my feet, the prayers that didn't make it in. And I remembered mine. I'd come so far with my prayer to say to God, "Dear God, please don't let me die of AIDS. Please don't let me be a candle in my mother's kitchen on the anniversary of my death. Don't let them make a panel for me in the Names Project AIDS Memorial quilt. Dear God, don't let me die. Not now. Not now. Not yet." But I'd forgotten to write it down. So I searched my mind for any prayer that I could think of, and I remembered in that moment what I was taught as a little boy in Kitat Gimel in 3rd grade in Hebrew school, that the Baal Shem Tov, the father of the Hasidic movement, once said, among many things, that you must never make fun of a man or a woman who is praying, especially if they're shuckling, if they're davening as they pray, because it's as if they are drowning. When a person is drowning, their arms are flailing above the water for someone to pull them out. And so too is it when a person is praying. They're drowning in their prayers, and they're reaching up for God to pull them out. I raise my cup of rescue, and I call on God's name. Fill me with your blessings, because I need a miracle. We all need miracles. So I placed my fingers against the stone, the cleft of the rock, as it's written in the Bible. And I let the headpiece of my tefillin rest against the wall. And the tears rest in the corners of my eyes. And I prayed the only prayer that was in my heart. Another prayer. Because I think that at the Kotel, there are really only two prayers we ever pray. One is, dear God, take it away. This disease, this loss, this emptiness. Or the other prayer, dear God, bring it back. The innocence, that whom I lost, the hope that I once held. But on this day, with the sun on my back, as I stood before my uncertain future, which is true for all of us when we stand at the Kotel, the sun on our back, we stand in front of an uncertain future. The only prayer I had was, dear God, thank you for the sun on my back, and for the soldier on my left, and the chassid on my right, and the old man at the gate, and the shekels in my pocket that clinked in his cup, and for the airplane that will take me back to America, and for the eyes that will meet me at the airport, and the arms that will hold me, and the people I've yet to meet. Tonight, I want to teach you another prayer, a brand new prayer that I learned a few years ago. And in this time of COVID, it is so important that we learn this prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shekacha lo be'olam hazeh. Praised are you, O Lord our God, that such things as this exist in your world. The question I ask you tonight is this. What's the this in the prayer? What's the this that we are so grateful for? Tonight I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to consider what is right about your life. What here is perfect, because so much isn't. For me, the smell of rain coming through a screen door at the end of August after a sudden summer storm. For me, the color of the light through the curtains at the end of the day when my mom would be in the kitchen frying up some chicken cutlets for Shabbos dinner. For me, the sun on my back as I stand before my uncertain future. For Samson, a teenager in England whom I met many years ago and wrote about in my second book, he writes it this way: it's the cloud of people who drift with me. It's the grass I sit on that rustles beneath, and the warmth that splashes on my skin, and the rivers of blood that rush inside me. There are no words to say my prayer. I will write my prayer with my life. One night in that HIV support group from 7 to 9, after the healing singing group, after Drew sang his Bruce Springsteen prayer, a young man raised his hand and he said, I'm diagnosed with AIDS and I'm dying, and I haven't told my parents, and I'm so scared and I don't know what to do. And the facilitator said, got it. I think I got it. I think we all heard you, but I have a question for you. So tell me, where's the problem? Not hearing the problem yet. And the young man said, maybe he didn't hear me. So let me repeat. I've been diagnosed with AIDS, and I don't have much time. I know I'm going to die, and I haven't told my parents yet, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. The facilitator said, yeah, we got that. We heard that. What I'm not hearing, she said, was I'm not hearing the problem. Shekacha lo ba'olam hazeh. What here is perfect? What would it be like if we lived our lives once in a while without so many adjectives? This is the worst year of our lives. This is the best day of my life. What if it's just the year and just the day? What if it's just what it is? What if what's happening right now is exactly what's supposed to happen right now? That famous author Eckhart Tolle, who writes about spirituality and be living in the moment, once said, how do you know that what you're going through is the exact thing you're supposed to be going through? Because you're going through it. Right here, right now. Where's the problem? What here is perfect? What here is exactly as it's supposed to be? I got an email many years ago from the many other emails that I received from a student who wrote some questions to me, but the email address was one long chain of words pushed together, which I thought was, but God is nowhere at AOL or at Hotmail or at Gmail, way before gmail.com. And I was preparing to return his email or her email, and I looked again at the name they'd chosen to represent themselves, their name avatar, and it didn't only just say, but God is nowhere, all smushed together in one long word. If you look at it differently, long enough, it also says, but God is now here. What here is perfect? What here is exactly as it's supposed to be? Where are the moments in our lives when we raise our cup of rescue? But before we do, we also look inside to see that it's already a little filled. We call on God's name for God's blessings because we need miracles, but the miracles exist in the cup already. Here we are. Reverend Kate Wilkinson is a reverend in Provincetown, Pennsylvania, Provincetown, Massachusetts, Provincetown, MA, and Cape Cod. And she's a Universalist Unitarian minister, and in one of her sermons, she recited this beautiful poem that she wrote, and in it she says, let's live for the life we have, not for the life we want. Not because it doesn't constantly break our hearts, because life does lend its lessons in time, if it hasn't already, but it has for all of us. Life continues to break our hearts, and I thank God every day for the heart in me that breaks, because it helps me understand the hearts of others. And let me say that again. I'm grateful for the heart in me that breaks, because it helps me understand your heart. Because we would say in our support group on Wednesday nights, there's only one of us here. We're all going through it. Reverend Kate Wilkinson said, live for the life you got, not the one you want. Not because it doesn't constantly break your heart, because it does, but it also beckons with beauty, and it startles with delight. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shekacha lo be'olam hazeh. Thank you, God, that such things as this exist in your world, that such things as this beckon with beauty and startle with delight. I raise my cup of rescue. I call on your name. I ask you to fill me with your blessings. I call on you for a miracle. And I also know that my cup is also filled with your miracles already. Shabbat Shalom.